talk to you about the grow kit that we've put together for the Spring Family Fitness Fest. There are a lot of things in there. You're either going to get a bag of soil that looks like this, or a slightly smaller one. We'll have some seeds for you of different varieties. There is a really nice planter. Okay, so you'll be getting all these things, and at least one printout. But the first thing you have to do is get the soil ready. Okay. All right, so you have to get your soil. You could put your soil directly into the pot, but I'm choosing to put my soil into another container. Now, it's really challenging, but you might want to do this somewhere where you can make a mess. But get your soil into some type of bucket. Okay. And I would just add some water and let it soak in overnight. It's really good if you can let it soak in overnight. You want your water to be pretty damp, but not dripping wet. However, it often puddles on the surface. It seems like it might be like too wet, but it actually isn't. It just needs to soak in. So put your water in some kind of bucket and make sure it's really damp, but not dripping wet. All right, so now I've transferred the soil into this planter, okay? And you have the option to plant seeds directly into this soil, okay? Some of the things that would do very well direct seeded include beans, okay, peas, herbs. Those are some things that would do well direct seeded. You would probably be okay direct seeding a tomato or some red peppers as well. These things grow pretty fast once it's summer. But you need to look on the back of your seed packets, and you need to see how much space each of these types of vegetables take. You can, it's not great, but you can reduce the recommended space by about 50% or use half the amount of space recommended. So just read the back of the seed packet, find out how far down the seeds go, and then direct seed, put the seeds directly into the soil. Okay. The last thing you want to make sure you look up if you're direct seeding is the date when you can plant the seeds outside. Many of these things like tomatoes, peppers, eggplants, squash, they will die if there's a frost. And our last frost date here in Bennington is right around Mother's Day. Okay, so the other option besides direct seeding, putting seeds directly into your planter, is to do transplanting. You would probably be more successful if you transplant. Okay, so to transplant, you would want a finer potting soil, better for starting seeds in. I've prepared this in the same way as I started the first soil, by adding water and mixing and letting it sit. Okay, so this is damp, but not dripping wet. And you can use something as simple as an egg crate to give yourself some little pockets of soil, and just gonna fill it up, and then you can put seeds in each of those pockets. Okay, so we have these two options ready. This is what you would direct seed in. This is something that you might transplant in, and I'm going to show you how to do those transplants. For transplants, follow the directions on the back of the packet related to seed planting depth. Okay, and when it comes to seed dates of planting, you should plan on starting them as transplants 6 weeks before they go outside. So whatever the plant outside date is, take it 6 weeks earlier for doing transplants, okay? And so let's say I'm gonna do some tomatoes. Tomatoes would benefit from being transplanted a lot, okay? So if you're growing tomatoes from seeds, it is very challenging to get a tomato harvest if you put these seeds in the ground in late June. They just don't have enough time. So I would do this. and we get your little transplant thing ready. Tomato seeds go about 1/4 of an inch down, so I'm just gonna poke a hole. It's nice to put 2 seeds in just in case one doesn't grow. And then, you know, I would maybe plant 2 tomato plants. You could probably fit 2 tomato plants in there. They'd be even a little crowded. You could plant this full of herbs. A lot of herbs are very happy to be transplanted. So you could plant cilantro or basil or parsley. And again, these are pretty small seeds. Check the seed depth, poke a little hole. Okay, plant 2 seeds per hole. Alright, cover them up. It is always good to label so you know what it was. So you can write directly on here, tomato, cilantro. It's nice to put the date. Okay. I would add a tiny bit of water. Okay, but the thing about adding water when you have seeds in the ground is that if it puddles too much, the seeds float up through the puddle and come out of the soil. So you've got to be careful. And then you want this to stay damp and have little motion happen to those seeds. Like, don't jostle the seeds for at least a week so that they germinate. Germination is when the seed wakes up and starts growing. They don't germinate well if they dry out, and they don't germinate well if they get moved around. So don't poke at them. All right, so my transplant seeds are planted, and they probably, depending on what they are, they'll take at least a week to sprout. And when you get a little sprout, okay, it's going to start off tiny, move it to a south-facing window where it gets lots and lots of sunlight. Okay, this would be a pretty good window. It's also excellent if you can add light, specifically fluorescent light. So if you have one of those curly Q light bulbs, that's a fluorescent light bulb, you could put it in a desk light and shine it on these plants. That could help. Okay, when the transplants are about 2 or 3 inches tall, you just gently move them into your planter or a garden. You can use an in-ground garden. You have to take care of them really carefully for the first 2 weeks. Make sure they get watered a lot because their roots aren't going to be able to like move into their surrounding soil for a little while. So you make sure they stay really well watered. And also, if you move a transplant outside, make sure the temperature is going to stay pretty warm for the first few days, or you can get them used to being outside by putting them outside for 1 hour one day, 2 hours the next day, 3 hours the next day, and it actually helps them get used to being outside in the wind and the strong sun. So those are helpful things for transplanting. To get credit for doing this activity for Spring Family Fitness Fest, please go to the website and make sure to fill out the response form where you answer the question about this activity. Okay? So thank you so much, and we hope you have fun planting.